Oh, thank you, Costa Rican mission trip team. Man, I got to tell you, I really want to say thank you. We've talked about being a blessing, and you went and you were a blessing. You said things like you experienced God's presence. It was heartbreaking. You were stretched. You were transformed. You said it was life-changing, inspirational. Thank you. When we allow God to filter into us, come into us in such a way, we become a conduit of His grace in powerful ways. We've talked about being a blessing to others. We've talked about how we can pray together, listen, eat together, serve others, and then share our story, which you had a chance to express why you follow Jesus and what He's done for you. So my focus for today is just to kind of recap that, and I'm not going to take a long time to do that, but how do our actions plus our words speak the loudest in a person's life, right? We're impacted by what people do. We're impacted by what people say. So let me ask you, what's one of the most caring, one of the most impactful things someone has ever done for you or said to you? Think about that for a minute. Go ahead, write it down if you have any thoughts on that. If not, maybe this short little video on Clint Pulver's story can help you recall a moment like he had. He is a president and founder of the Center for Employee Retention. Found that that's where he had an opportunity to work with different people with the gifts. He basically challenges and equips leaders, and with talking about the pitfalls, the difficulty, how do we really build into culture. And this is what happened to him at 10 years old that he will never forget. So go ahead and play that.
I have a lot of memories from when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old, and I was in school, and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen and focus and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there and then I would just start tapping, and the students in the class would look at me and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually even the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Okay, maybe when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands." And so I did. I went back to class, and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class, and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, he looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me. And I will never forget it. And so I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. And he walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here. I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "Now, I need you to know something. You're not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he asked, he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer." From that moment on, I've never put those sticks down. I've toured, recorded, and played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. Just because of a single moment in time when somebody believed in me and he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
I like that. I've learned the difference from being the best in the world to being the best for the world, right? Isn't this what Christ came for? He believed that a single moment can actually change a person's life. And it's funny that at 10 years old, someone spoke into his life, and it made all the difference. Now, he shared this story hundreds of times because that simple conversation, which took less than 5 minutes, set the course of his life, right? We come to this last session of Bless that we've decided we want as a regular ongoing pattern for all of us, right? Not just when we go off somewhere, but you're taking it back here in your world and you're saying, hey, we want to see Christ make that same difference. We want to be a blessing to others because this has been God's desire for us all the way along, to bless the world around us. It's why we are lights in a dark world. And John was one of Jesus' closest disciples. He walked together with him for 3 years while Jesus was finishing his earthly life. And in writing 1 John 3, he sums up the message he heard and he saw and he experienced as he was with Jesus time and time again. And in verse 11, he says this, "For this is the message you heard from the beginning. We should love one another." You can go to that one. All right, super. We get it, right? All right, message is clear. Love one another. We're going to go out. We're going to do it. We've got it down. Sounds easy. But when he talks about love here, what's John really trying to help us understand? What kind of gets in the way for us to do that? Well, look at what he references right after saying we should love one another. He says this in the next verse. "Do not be like Cain. He belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother." And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous. Whoa. What? Why give such this great challenge and then jump all the way back to the first family that existed and talk about what went wrong? Why not give us a list of all these wonderful acts of kindness that made a difference? That's a lot more positive. And wouldn't that be better to give us good examples to look at? Why jump into this? Why bring up Cain and this horrifying act of killing his brother? What's he trying to point out here? Well, next verse maybe helps us a little bit. "Well, do not be surprised, my brothers and sisters, if the world hates you." Oh, wow. You're just getting more inspiring all the way along, John. Thank you so much. This is just great. So I'm supposed to love people more who are going to toss it aside. I'm not so sure this is the best way to actually inspire us into this loving one another challenge. God, are you trying to inform us that the more we actually develop a loving relationship with you and surround ourselves with a community of people who are committed to doing that same thing, and we're out there and really showing that we have a heart of compassion, the more the world's going to hate us? I thought that the more loving we are, then people appreciate us more. They'll want to come and put their trust in God who loves them most, right? Well, let's go a little further. Let's see what else John has to say. He says, "We know that we've passed from death to life because of this one reason. We actually genuinely love each other. And anyone does not love, well, they're just remaining in death. And anyone who hates a brother or sister is actually a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life residing in him." Now, John goes on to talk about this quite a bit over the next couple of chapters. In verse 20 of chapter 4, he says, "If anyone boasts, I love God, and goes right on hating his brother or sister, thinking nothing of it, well, you need to know this. That person's a liar. They do not have the love of God in them. If that person won't love the person he can see, how can he love the God he can't see?" Isn't it interesting? The identifying mark of God's love having its greatest impact is how we deal with someone close to us. Maybe that's hurt us or hindered us, or maybe on the opposite made us feel jealous and envious in some way. The world around us just builds that kind of fear. Whatever the reasons are, it may cause us to hate that person, dismiss them of being unworthy of God's love. Now, we know that there's righteous anger over, something that someone did wrong and we want justice to be served. But when this kind of continual anger fosters inside of us, something takes place. This resentment is one you hold on to, and you hold it over another person. It kind of starts as anger or you're just disgusted or whatever the reason is, and it builds up to full-blown bitterness and rejection. You can't let it go. In your mind, whether you know it or not, you've already judged and condemned that person as unworthy of forgiveness and grace and God's presence in their life. Is this what happened to Cain? Did his resentment eventually blind him to see the value in his brother? So when it finally boiled over, he thought the best option was just to do away with him, to kill him? Now, you don't need to raise your hand on this, but have you ever allowed something someone did or said to you to get so embedded in your mind that you just kind of rejected that person? You just became bitter and said, cutting that person off. I know I have, even to the point of holding on to that pain for years. I held on to something that someone close to me said that hurt me deeply. I kind of played that over and over in my mind, and I said, I'm just going to cut that person off from my life for 25 years. I evaluated this person through the pain he caused me. Unfortunately, I discovered, and it took me a long time, that my unforgiving attitude toward this person kept me in this prison of protection that actually hindered my ability to be vulnerable and truly love in the way God designed, to really care for others. It blinded me also to what God was doing in that person's life, which God was at work in powerful ways. Missed out. So how can you know what real God-given love is? Well, verse 16 says this. This is how you know, and we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. Jesus, our example. And we ought to lay down our lives for brothers and sisters. But how is that possible when you steeled yourself away from ever being vulnerable and hurt again? It's fearful. I heard just this great, as you guys came up here and shared, wow, Lord, you have got people out there who need to know you. But I can be honest with you, I'm so glad it's bubbling over you, but I want you to be prepared. There's going to be people look at you and go, I want no part of that, right? You're going to get rejected. But don't let that stop you. One of the aspects of knowing that we are moved from bitterness to grateful compassion is that we don't look at others the same way anymore. We see the humanness in a whole new way and ask, Lord, I'm going to release this person into your hands to do the work that only you can do in them. I don't have to judge him. I don't have to convince them. But just fill me with your spirit that's going to replace my fear, my resentment, my rejection, whatever it is, my envy, my hurt. Just fill that. Help me to see them as you do and to live in that reality. When you hold on to something someone has said or has done, it hinders you from moving forward and you get stuck. This includes those people who actually never did anything wrong to you, but you just don't like them. It's just for some reason or other, you evaluate and say, I just don't get along with that person. We got different personalities. I don't connect. I just don't like that person. And what happens is this pride-filled evaluation of them creates in your mind's eye that I don't need to show them love and grace and allow God to work. And it's actually blocking you from experience a greater inflow of God's wonderful gift of his presence and his compassionate spirit. A few years ago, Reader's Digest had an interesting story. A woman was surprised at church one day when another woman, who had often snubbed her, went out of her way to give her a big hug before the service. Wow. She had wondered, well, I wonder what initiated that woman's change of heart. Well, she got her answer at the end of the service when the pastor instructed, your assignment for this coming week is the same as it was last week. I want you to go out there and love somebody you just can't stand. Okay, so before you leave today, no, we're not going to do that. Forget that, right? I think it also makes us aware, doesn't it, of our feelings that kind of come out, right? How we feel about others and saying, Lord, I'm going to allow you to convict my heart about those you want me to care for. Go ahead. it's going to make me uncomfortable, but you're going to do something transformative, inspirational, heartbreaking, life-changing. It's a beautiful thing that happens. There was a story that I've read. It's a great little book that I appreciated. And it was about, it's a little bit about a father who's writing letters to his children, and says letters to his children. And so in one particular one, his kids ask questions and he responds to them. And it's a great little book, but it's wonderful. Daniel Taylor describes an experience. This is the dad who's writing to his kids that he had in 6th grade, and he basically said, hey, kids, I want you to know this, my kids, this is what happened to me. Periodically in school, the students were taught how to dance. Thank God this kind of thing isn't done anymore, but the teacher would line up the boys at the door of the classroom, he said, to choose their partners. Now imagine what it would have been like to be one of the girls, right? Waiting to be chosen, wondering if they were going to be chosen, wondering if they were going to be chosen by someone they didn't like. One girl, Mary, was always chosen last. Because of childhood illness, one of her arms was drawn up. She had a bad leg. She wasn't that pretty, not that smart. She was nice, but that kind of thing really didn't matter during those days. Well, the assistant teacher of Dan's class happened to attend his church, and one day she pulled Dan aside and said, Dan, next time we are dancing, I want you to choose Mary. Oh no, Dan couldn't believe it. Why would anyone pick Mary when there was Linda or Shelley or even Doreen? Dan's teacher told him this is what Jesus would have done. And deep inside, he knew she was right, which didn't make it any easier. All Dan could hope for was that he would be the last in line. This way, he could choose Mary, do the right thing, and no one would be the wiser. Instead, guess what? That's right, Dan was first in line. He said, the faces of the girls were turned toward me, some smiling. I looked at Mary and saw that she was only half turned to the back of the room. She knew no one would pick her first. Mr. Jenkins said, okay, Dan, choose your partner. I remember feeling very far away. I heard my voice say, though, I choose Mary. And never has reluctant virtue been so rewarded. I still see her face undimmed in my memory. She lifted her head, and on her face, reddened with pleasure and surprise and embarrassment all at once, was the most genuine look of delight and pride that I have ever seen, before or since. It was so pure that I had to look away because I knew I didn't deserve it. Mary came, took my arm, as we had been instructed, and she walked beside me, bad leg and all, just like a princess. Mary's my age now. I never saw her after that year. I don't know what her life's been like or what she's doing, but I'd like to think that she has a fond memory of at least one day in the 6th grade. I know I do. There was nothing Mary could do. She was chosen. She was selected first. He was given the opportunity, Dan was, to see the person through a different lens at his young age. Little did he know in that moment of choosing Mary, he was on his way to embracing what Jesus wanted him to experience every day of his life. Like he chose Mary, he was chosen. And now he could go and choose others to show God's amazing grace and love to. It helps at the course of his life and his walk with Jesus. John, in this section, concludes with this. He said, if anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. I like that phrase, has no pity on them, because in the original language, it really means you close your heart to them. You create a barrier that not only hinders you about caring about that person, but it hardens your heart to receiving God's love. It cuts you off from being a conduit of his grace and care. That's why he says, we're going to put this into action, Lord. So as we come to this closure of this blessed series, again, this is just not something, oh good, let's check this off the list, we're all done. That's not what our intent is. The intent is that this becomes a lifestyle for you, that this is just something that just flows out of you. It's why all of us across the world who are doing blessed want to be a blessing to others. What are some of the ways you can be a blessing through your words and action this week? Start by praying that God will open your eyes and ears to those he's preparing you to walk and to talk to. Ask him to soften your heart, heal your heart if it's been closed off. And then listen for God's promptings. He will bring those people he is choosing, you, specifically you, to show care to. And then listen for understanding when you're with them. Ask the question, hey, is there anybody that I could have coffee with this week? Have I allowed myself to create time to meet with people? Who's actually in need of your specific gifts and talents and abilities to serve them? Ask that question. And lastly, just ask God to help you share your story of why you follow and love Jesus. People are more hungry and thirsty than you may know because God has been preparing their hearts for him and for you. They're waiting for you. And you don't know if in the single moment something this week will change that person's life forever. You just don't know. But our God does. And he's just waiting for you to join him in making that a reality. Let's pray together. Lord Jesus, I thank you for the opportunities that you give us, just as you gave those who went to Costa Rica, even maybe in some ways just fearfully, but how you met them in that place so that they could know you more and see your heart. I ask that you continue to do that for all of us here. We don't want to be like Cain. What an example you gave. We probably are not aware of those things we've been holding on to. Will you help us to release those so we aren't hindered? That you can just work and heal, and then your presence flows through us. Give us eyes and ears to see what you see. Thank you. Thank you for being patient with us. You are so patient. And you just take us where we're at and you lead us. Thank you for being a faithful God. We ask all these things in your precious name, Jesus. Amen.